Neo has been on a roll lately. When the 80 dropped, it combined a lot of the technology we've seen before, like the catch ball mount with Owl Labs' magnetic daughter board, as well as a plethora of mounting options that made it incredibly customizable. Today, Neo went in a little bit of a different direction, taking these technologies and implementing them into a tented Alice, a layout Neo has never tackled before. Let's take a look at the all-new Neo Ergo. The Neo Ergo comes with an optional wrist rest, which is in this separate box. It's wrapped in this bag, and inside is the cherry wood variant. Now onto the board itself. Let's open up this carrying case, and inside is first our diffusers for the LEDs, gaskets, and some bottom feet and spare parts. In the top compartment, we have a box with our braided cable and Neo switch puller, nothing crazy. Our Neo stabs, a white palm plate, aluminum plate, and finally, our hot swap PCB, PE foam, and plate foam. In the bottom compartment is the board itself, shrink wrapped with the case foam inside. The Neo Ergo is a tented or tilted Alice keyboard. It's gasket mounted and has 3 PCB options: tri-mode hot swap, wired hot swap, and solder. All of these are 1.6mm thick and have no flex cuts. All of these also support stepped caps, split left shift, 1.75U spacebar on the left or right, split backspace, and your choice between arrow keys or system keys and shift or system keys. All of these PCBs are VIA compatible. For plates, we have aluminum, FR4, carbon fiber, PP or polypropylene, PC, and POM. And for colors, we have a few different customizable parts, including the case, which comes in 8 anodized finishes, as well as 5 spray-coated finishes, 3 of which have glitter. The kernel, which is visible from the back of the board, comes in 4 finishes. The badge on the bottom weight of the board comes in 4 finishes, and the bottom weight itself comes in 7 finishes, including 3 mirrored finishes. Lastly, depending on your options, the Neo Ergo will cost between $130 and $188. In the PCB are the included Neo stabs looped with 205 grade 0 and BDZ. I'll add on the PP plate, and in here go stock mint chocolate chips. These are tactile switches with a pretty solid sound profile. With the switches in, I'll split off the extra bits of the PCB and throw them away. Now we can install the gaskets, starting with these smaller ones that go on the 4 outer corners, and then install the inner gaskets, which are larger and go in the center edges. The next step I actually did incorrectly, which is installing the light diffusers. These diffusers should have the longer side facing upward and be installed from the bottom of the plate, whereas here I'm installing it from the top. So this step should be performed before installing the switches into the plate. These will be redone for the final build. And we also have one last larger light diffuser that goes on this LED segment near the side. With the inner assembly done, we can move on to the case. This is a screwless case that uses a catch ball mount, so we can just release the top case, add in the case foam, install the inner assembly, and reinstall the top case. Now I'm going to install GMK Blue Samurai. It's probably not the best combination, but I also wanted to use a set that actually supported this layout properly. Let's take a listen. The sound profile is actually pretty strong. Mint chocolate chips tend to be very clacky and high-pitched, so in my opinion, when paired with the PP plate, they result in a satisfying, well-rounded sound with a pretty good balance of low-end and high-end. I was a little scared of hollowness because there was a lot of resonance when tapping on the top case. In reality, there's no hollowness and just a little bit of metallic case pinging, and this should be fixed with some extra force break mod. Without the case foam, I think the sound profile of this config in particular loses a lot of its poppiness and snappiness, so I'm opting to keep the case foam for my final build. But with the catchball mounted case and magnetic daughter boards, it's easy enough to test the sound with and without the case foam for yourself. Since these switches are stock, the sound has a little bit of scratchiness regardless of the case foam, but overall, I'm very happy with the sound quality, especially coming from a board with this complex layout and internal structure. The feel of this board is very interesting. The PP plate definitely provides some softness, but actually getting the board to push downward is a little difficult with the case foam installed. It's also important to note that the two halves of the boards are entirely separate, so pressing one down won't affect the flex of the other. There's definitely more give in the center of each of the PCBs instead of the center of the entire board, which is basically the opposite of what a non-Alice custom keyboard would feel like. Removing the case foam adds a lot of that give back, and honestly, probably ends up being a little bit too soft for me. But it definitely is possible to get a super flexy board. Granted, you get one of the softer plates and omit the case foam. And what about the actual ergonomics? After all, it's the point of the layout. While it does take a bit of getting used to, especially since this board isn't a flat Alice, it's a very comfortable board and layout. I think the wrist rest is a must-have if you want to daily drive this board, but a wrist rest is a must-have for pretty much any tented Alice anyway, because of how tall the board gets at the center. Instead of angling my forearms and wrists, I can rest them on the table in a much more natural position. Unfortunately for me, I will not be daily driving this board, as like I said in the Bear 65 review, I tend to hit Y with my left hand. So whether or not the layout is comfortable for you is the most important thing to consider. Where this board really shines, quite literally, is in its design, which is some of the least bland in the entire Neo series of boards. On top, we have a few different LED spots, including the larger gaps between the keys that are natural to the Alice layout, and also a smaller section near the bottom left. The board has pretty prominent chamfering, which goes all around the top case. The side profile is pretty angular and simple, with the bottom case tapering inward towards the center, and at the back we can see the kernel, which also contains the USB-C port. The bottom of the board is definitely the most impressive, with a decently sized weight and very tasteful accent badges. This weight has a lot of chamfering around it, which helps accentuate it more. The only gripe I have about the design is the LED accents. I think they look weirdly out of place, which isn't really an issue, as they're entirely optional and it won't change your build if you use them or not. But I appreciate that the Neo team thought of this gap that was an issue with every Alice board and tried to make something better out of it. Maybe in future iterations, we'll be able to enjoy a diffuser that blends in much better with the rest of the build. How about the interior? With the top case off and inner assembly gone, we can see the small but pretty brass piece in the center that the PCBs sit on. Here are also the magnetic daughter board attachments, which accommodate both halves of the board. These are slightly larger than usual, and with that comes an even more satisfying snap when you install the inner assembly. There are also some rubber pieces for force brake mod here, and the latches for the catch ball mount. Lastly, if you have a tri-mode PCB, which I don't, the switch to turn on the battery would be here. In terms of material quality, everything looks great, except for one very small nitpick I have. The curve at the center of the tent isn't very well curved. If you catch it at the right lighting, there are two pretty prominent lines on either side of the center, which makes the board feel that much less premium. But this is just me looking for issues, as Neo tends to be very thorough with their designs, and the board overall is no exception. The wrist rest is great, with a smooth but still natural looking finish, and it even has its own rubber feet. So the Ergo is a bit of a departure for Neo, both in terms of layout and design. Now that all of the main layouts have been covered, Neo is able to experiment with bringing great value and high quality boards to new areas of the hobby, starting with the tented Alice. It's a great step forward for Neo, and with the high quality and unique aesthetics of the Neo Ergo, I'm excited to see where Neo takes the budget keyboard scene in the coming boards.